The wife flirted in the bar, wildly danced on the table, and handed her to a suitor, and all this was recorded on Vide. I want to share with you a story of a difficult time I have been having. Sitting at the table on a Wednesday, I stared at my Bud Light bottle, and that was when it all began. I opted for a 4-pack since I didn't want to risk being too tipsy in case things didn't work out. I knew my wife was nearly ready when the music upstairs finally stopped. My wife's bachelorette parties often take place on Wednesdays, so I wind myself working late. While my wife went out drinking with her co-workers, my parents would watch our kid Michael. On Thursdays, I would stay late at the workplace to finish paperwork so that I could leave early to spend time with my family. Everything seems to have been well planned. As far as I was concerned, my parents found time in their hectic schedule to spoil their grandchild, and my wife relished her occasional night out. As I sat there watching the entrance, I saw a familiar face go into the restaurant. It made me think about how frequently I should swing by the shop, or how I might get those delicious sandwiches to go. I got to my feet and waved as I watched her survey the area. She came up to me the second she saw me. 18 years old was Claire. My wife's buddy is this woman. Even though she was married, I still liked her. She was able to ease tensions without seeming weak. I couldn't help but notice how lovely Claire looked, with her pale complexion and light blonde hair. She may not have been endowed, but her lovely face and wonderful legs more than made up for it. David, her spouse, believed she was a divine blessing, and he felt the same way. Sitting opposite from me, she expressed her gratitude for our encounter. Her words were sincere. "I know how busy you are, Thomas. I appreciate you taking the time," and she looked me directly in the eyes. I said, "No problem, Claire, but it seemed unusual to meet you here without Julia. It is my typical preference to have supper with my wife, but since this is about Julia, I am listening. I assume you are planning a surprise for her birthday next month?" Claire's face became somber as we spoke about our lunch and Julia's birthday. Inquiring, "What is wrong?" I reached out. "I know you and Julia love each other deeply. I've seen it myself. That is why I am here. It might hurt our friendship, but if it helps save your marriage, I am willing to do it." There is no easy way to say this, but Julia has been seeing someone for 5 months now, reveals Claire. I was taken aback. I told Claire, "This is so ridiculous, it must be a joke. I'm really sorry, Thomas, but it's not a joke. About 4 months ago, after you started this big project, Julia got depressed. She's been irritable at work, and when we go out she seems more bored than usual. After a few martinis, we got her to open up about missing you and feeling neglected. She also mentioned feeling like you two were just another middle-aged married couple letting life pass you by." The waiter arrived at Claire's table to take her order. An iced tea and Caesar salad were her choices. The idea of my wife's concealment raced through my head. After 11 years of marriage, I thought my wife would come clean about her feelings of unhappiness. I thought we were completely forthright with one another no matter how much we disagreed. "Did she sleep with him?" I whispered to Claire in a hurry. "No, as far as I'm aware. Your wife is known to be quite outgoing, so I find her behavior surprising," Claire said. "Thomas, you need to know something. Every woman I've talked to says the same thing. I guess you both often complain about being overwhelmed by everyday life or something like that," she said. "When Julia brought it up, we all sympathized with her and told her she is a beautiful woman and you should pay more attention to her. Unfortunately, my sister was there that night." "What does your sister have to do with this?" I said, able to control a little of rage. According to Claire, her sister is quite promiscuous. Her remark caused the waiter who had given her tea to arch an eyebrow. Claire sipped and went on. "My parents were both cheaters. I don't know who cheated first, but they always wanted revenge on each other. When I was 20, I asked them why they were still together, and they acted like I was from another planet. They said they loved each other, and that's all that mattered. This affected my sister and me differently. I realized cheating ruins relationships, but my sister thought it was okay as long as you love each other. I love her, but she is misguided. Anyway, back to the point. My sister Lisa suggested that if Julia doesn't find romance at home, she should look elsewhere. I told her she was wrong, but then Isabel and Sophia started talking about finding better partners and keeping things secret. I think for them it was just a theoretical discussion, especially since they're not married. Julia said she'd never cheat on you, but I think my sister's words planted doubts in her mind. "Why do you think that?" I inquired, now uncertain about Julia's commitment. More and more knowledge was absorbed by me. It was hard to hear all of this. but I've always thought that information is power. Then Claire said, the following week, Jake Morris and his team joined us at the Blue Moon Bar. Julia claimed she didn't invite him but mentioned our group dance plans to him. It is usually fun when more people try something new, but not with Jake around. Tell me about this guy, Jake, said me. After seeing my confident tone, Claire smiled slightly and said, Jake Morris is known for chasing women. He goes after every woman who shows interest, not caring if she's married or not. He just loves the chase. Your wife caught his eye from the start, but until that night, he hadn't pursued her. Now he is after her, and instead of standing up to him, she's avoiding him. Everyone knows that if Jake faces another sexual harassment charge, he'll be fired. She could stop his advances, but she doesn't. They've been seen talking in the cafeteria a lot over the past few months. I tried to talk to her about it, but she got defensive, insisting they were just friends, and that Jake listens to her and understands her problems. I inquired about her behavior in my presence, and she blushed and admitted that she wouldn't. Subsequently, she became upset and said something about my lack of attention. In response, I retreated, but continued to monitor her. Work appeared to calm down, and I believed everything had returned to normal until that incident 4 weeks ago. As Claire's order came, she started eating while I sipped my lemonade, lost in thought. How Julia could have possibly thought that my disapproval of her seeing another guy would annoy me is beyond me. I didn't feel excessive envy. In my wife, I had unwavering love and trust. I wondered whether I had been too engrossed in my job assignment to notice her. Maybe I've been trying too hard, but there is a big payoff waiting for me when I finish. Something about the event from 4 weeks ago kept piquing my interest. Was it really my want to know? As I tried to make sense of Claire's disclosures, we ate in quiet for the next 10 minutes. Without a doubt, I was furious. Even if Julia's reasons for becoming so intimate with another guy were completely without merit, I could almost see where she was coming from. I wonder whether things might have turned out differently if I had paid closer attention. She was effectively deceiving me by keeping me in the dark about her flirty conduct. It was an incomplete truth, but I could ignore her behavior for the time being and concentrate on making things right. I would have a conversation with her and express my worries. We could go forward if she just admitted her feelings and decided to put some space between herself and Jake. Unless anything major happened in the last 4 weeks, I haven't seen any long-term impact. Tell me what happened 4 weeks ago. How bad was it? I put forth. I was able to establish a firm foundation for my thoughts by doing this research. I thought I could manage it. Claire gave me an empathic gaze. This is where it gets ugly, Thomas. 4 weeks ago, we were back at the Blue Moon Bar to dance. Jake and his friends arrived, and we all danced together, having a good time. Julia had been drinking more than usual, with Jake buying drinks for her all evening, which made her quite intoxicated. I accompanied her to the restroom and realized she was even more drunk than I initially thought. When we came out, she was holding her underwear in her hand, saying she wanted to feel liberated. Well, she was nearly plastered. I chalked her behavior up to the booze and helped her back to our table. I tried to persuade Isabel and Sophia to help me take Julia to my house so she wouldn't go home completely wasted, but then I saw Julia and Jake getting too close, bumping into each other and simulating sex on the dance floor. After the group dancing ended, the rest of the evening felt like background noise. I saw Julia put her underwear in Jake's pocket at the end of a song. Everyone in the bar saw it too, and there were whistles all around as Jake grinned and gave her a deep kiss. One of his friends recorded the whole thing on a phone. I hoped Julia would resist, but she didn't. When she saw my reaction, she apologized, saying she was sorry. I had to leave because my jaw dropped. Standing up and walking away, I locked myself in the restroom, my speech stuttering behind me. I clenched the sink and splattered water all over my face. I recalled the evening Julia returned home at 3:30 in the morning, after Claire had phoned to inform her that she would be staying with her because of her heavy drinking. Claire and the girls had prevented Julia from getting a DUI on several occasions, and for that, I was eternally thankful. As I sensed a change in her demeanor, memories of the intense lovemaking we enjoyed flooded back to me. I felt betrayed by her excitement for another guy, and was apparently ready for a fight when I returned home, so I refocused my anger on the present. "Damn," I said under my breath. I went back to the table to collect myself after asking, what if she was thinking about him while we were together? She had me beat. I asked Claire for clarification as my meal went uneaten, reading her expression of empathy. To be honest, Thomas, that is pretty much it, she said. The recent bachelorette parties were held at Isabel's house with wine and a lingerie show. At work, Julia seems distant with Jake, although he continues to pursue her. I thought it was over, but just yesterday I saw them talking. They stopped when I approached, so I'm not sure what's going on. I felt you needed to know since she no longer listens to her friends, she said. I hastily snatched the bill from the server's hands and fumbled for my payment card. I'd like to observe their interaction and perhaps intimidate them right off the bat, said I. Wow, Julia said you girls are hitting up the Blue Moon bar this week. Well, when you go there on Wednesday, I'll be there to keep an eye on them. I froze, taking note of Claire's nervous demeanor. What had I said incorrectly, I asked. Thomas, Isabel has a doctor's appointment early Thursday morning, and Sophia is visiting her brother in Texas. If Julia goes out on Wednesday, it won to be with us, she said. She sadly said, I am so sorry, darling, as she reached across the table and took hold of my hand after me. I know it's better not to inquire about your well-being, but if you need to talk to someone, here's my home phone number. You can reach out to David or me at any time. Her husband worked as a marital counselor, so he might be an ally. Thank you for informing me, Claire. I understand this must be challenging for you, but I genuinely believe you are a good person and a good friend. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know what is happening right now, and I can do what I can. Thank you again, I said, getting up from the table, paying off the credit card, and leaving. The project I was working on reached a new milestone today. We cut setup time by 3 months and ensured at least a week's supply, despite uncertain shipping logistics, by securing a supply of completed components from a startup firm in Albany. This proposal might be finished 2 months early, saving the military millions of dollars, with only 2 more phone calls. As I had expected, the monetary incentive would be enormous, and the project's acknowledgement would greatly enhance my profile. Instead of being as happy as a cat with a full tummy of cream, I feared returning home and confronting the things I knew I needed to fix. I felt it was necessary to investigate this on my own. I couldn't access her work email, but I really doubted they would risk utilizing it because of HR's scrutiny. When I checked her Yahoo email, I didn't see anything that would lead me to suspect her. In order to verify whether she has a separate account, I will want access to our home computer. Despite my lack of technical expertise, I had a more straightforward strategy for monitoring. This plan did not include the installation of complex technology, such as security cameras or voice-activated microphones. I wanted to know whether I should attempt to save our marriage or terminate it, so I gathered as much information as I could. After picking Michael up from my parents' house, Julia requested that I bring some Chinese cuisine to eat at home. After 15 years of marriage, I should know she likes orange chicken, she told me when I asked her what she wanted. I had to be snarky and explain that I only wanted to confirm that our arrangement was still satisfactory to her. She then requested an additional egg roll, and my phone rang right away. Though I usually relish the opportunity to return home early and spend quality time with my loved ones, today was an exception. I hadn't returned home so early on a Thursday since the project began, I noticed as I glanced at the clock. Even while I could see how Julia may feel ignored, it didn't justify what she did. Upon entering the house, I saw Julia grabbing a wine bottle. In awe of her form, I halted. She was at her peak at the age of 39, standing at 5'6" tall with curves that were undeniably alluring, even in loose sweatpants. Her shapely rear was evident. Her hair was tied back in a ponytail, and she turned around, flashing me a radiant smile that made me remember how lucky I was to have her. Then reality hit me. I am so happy you are home, honey. Was work good? Pretty good, she said as she planted a kiss on my lips. Our progress on some materials has been remarkable, and we may be able to complete the project 1 month early, my darling. Because of this initiative, I am sure I've spent a lot of time away from home. Classified information prevents me from sharing specifics, but please know that you and Michael are my first concern. I looked deeply into her eyes as I promised. I will do everything it takes to keep us safe. I wonder if I caught a glimpse of shame or regret, or if it was all in my head. I get it, honey. This is only a momentary setback, and we both love you. She seemed about to cry, but I couldn't tell whether she was acting or if she was really feeling it. Regardless, I am delighted you recognized it. Tell me, therefore, how will you benefit from the project's early conclusion? she inquired as she emptied the food storage containers. Well, firstly, it entails a significant bonus. Until the project is greenlit, we want to know the actual amount, but it's a big deal. In addition, we expect further business as a result of the successful completion of our first government project. Government contractors may seek my skills as the project manager, which might lead to lucrative prospects. This is known to the higher-ups, therefore I may be able to negotiate better benefits. I stated, trying to eat my sweet and sour pork with chopsticks before switching to a fork. If everything goes smoothly, it should be quite rewarding. I'd already mentioned this. I don't remember, my darling, she said as I chewed. I vaguely recall you talking about a promising sounding but undisclosed large deal. And it appears that we haven't had much conversation since then, she said, her expression gradually changing from depressed to perky. However, it appears that my husband will be returning soon, she continued, her tone now much more upbeat. So what bar are you ladies going to tomorrow night? I said, casting a quick peek in her direction. Time to go fishing. Would it be okay if I dropped by after work to see how you were doing on the way home? As I attempted to sound casual, I inquired about our plans to attend the Blue Moon Bar for some group dancing. In response, she glanced at her chicken and said, "Oh, actually, we think we'll be done before you finish work." That made my heart sink. Michael finished his egg roll and then requested bedtime stories. I washed my plate and carried my son into the living room after I lifted him. After story for the next hour until he fell asleep. I heard Julia snoring on the couch, her book on her lap, so I gathered Michael up, carried him upstairs to his bedroom, and tucked him in. Tears came to my eyes as I thought about the days ahead. I wanted Michael to remember these nice evenings with his parents instead of the hard times that were coming. I wiped them away and returned downstairs, where Julia remained sound asleep. I gave her a gentle kiss and wrapped her in a blanket to keep her warm. Then I went in search of her phone, which I discovered plugged into the wall socket on the nightstand in our bedroom. After unlocking it with a swipe, I started scrolling through her text messages and quickly found what I was looking for. By going back 5 months, I was able to trace their exchanges. "Hey beautiful, it was fun watching you and the girls dance last night." She responded likewise. "Thomas works late on Wednesdays, and the in-laws watch Michael." Words like "Vicky gave me a talking to today about our lunch breaks" seemed to bite deeper and deeper into my heart as I read on. She wanted to know if Thomas would approve of our behavior, which made me think we might be sending the wrong signals. I was irritated, but she picked up on everything. Him exactly. I don't want any misunderstandings. On top of that, I really shouldn't be venting to this other man about anything. Perhaps I can attempt to have a conversation with Thomas. He said, "I get that, but if you can get his attention, you'll know where I am. I'll even buy you dinner if we have to, just to be friends." I don't think Julia ever tried to have a serious conversation with me. Maybe it was when I was so busy gathering project materials, I could have missed anything. Up until now, the messages had seemed harmless, but now it was obvious this guy was trying to get under my skin. How could Julia have been so oblivious? As I scrolled down the page, I saw more disturbing messages. He said, "What are you talking about?" When she said, "You have to return them today." You were fully aware. I completely see why my pals are so angry with me right now. My partner Thomas could dump me if he discovers I acted like a showgirl. So you're not interested in me showing him the footage? That video? Sam was there and he recorded a video on his phone. No one at work can see this. All right, I can to lose Thomas, not after last night. After which she said, "I'll make sure he deletes it, but you owe me." Asking, "What transpired last night?" It's not really your concern. Did he take offense to the fact that you returned home late and under the influence of alcohol? That's hilarious. Definitely not. So some dirty dancing with me made you toil for your husband's forgiveness. Let us just say something happened that turned everything upside down and leave it at that. I should be thanked by him. You are vile. The love that Thomas and I share made last night one for the record books. Please return my underpants and delete that embarrassing video. He said, "No, he's lucky to have you." It sounded like I was some kind of fancy woman. Thomas deserves more than that. I thought he was watching you. I don't need someone to guard me. I'm sure he's a wonderful person, but you often go out on your own. Sorry, of course. Please act like the friend you say you are and take care of what I've asked. Thank you. I'll lend you a hand, and then you may treat me to supper. As long as this video stays hidden, I'll satisfy your every demand. I heard the bachelorette party is canceled, he said last Wednesday, marking the latest development. Why don't we have supper together? Him, come on. That was a bad idea, I'm sorry. Her, I see. The girls went out with a friend one night and your spouse will be at work. We may continue our conversation like we did in the caf. Him. No, I'd rather you meet me at JJS, which is at the Grand Hotel. You owe me that much. Her, all right, I'll meet you at the Blue Moon at 8. They provide delicious cocktails, but I'd rather not deal with inebriated dweebs. I will book a hotel if we consume too much alcohol. Okay, but it is just supper with a few pals, and I appreciate you making sure the video didn't get out. Even worse, word has gotten out at work about this. Him, Don T, fret over it. Just wait for someone else to do anything controversial. I saw Sam remove the tape. Then everything will be okay. It struck me then, this was probably the last straw that would break my marriage. How often had I seen my wife go on dates with other men in hotel restaurant bars? After finishing our messages, I disconnected her phone from the charger, undressed, and went to bed by myself. I struggled to get any sleep for quite a while. On Wednesday, she wore her signature little black dress, the one we wore whenever we went out, and looked absolutely stunning. As she paused at the bottom of the stairs, she saw me sitting at the table. I didn't expect you to come home so early today, baby, she said, her voice quivering slightly. We need to talk, Julia, I said, my voice emotionless. I think we're having the most important discussion of our lives right now. I know there wanted to be a bachelorette party today. Please have a seat. She sat down, anxiously reaching out for my hand, but I removed it. Thomas, I beg you to let me explain, she cried, but I slammed my fist on the table and interrupted, saying, Listen to me, Julia. I know you're seeing Jake Morris behind my back. Tears welled up in her eyes as she recoiled, but you can talk until I've said my bit. I know you kissed that idiot at lunch, I said while staring at her impassively. You and him danced at the Blue Moon Club, I know that. I'm aware that after some sexually suggestive dancing movements, you removed your underpants and offered them to him. I can tell you now that your excitement about him was the only reason you were so into me 4 weeks ago. In addition, I am aware that your boyfriend has already booked a reservation at the Hotel S restaurant, so you will be heading there tonight on a date with him. I simply have no idea if you've had sexual relations with him or not, and if you haven't, I don't see what could possibly deter you. Julia, you lied to me about Jake by omission, I said, after pausing to control my wrath. You deceived me about your daring dancing moves and your plans to hang out with the females. I'm completely worn out, and my faith in you is completely broken. The idea of trying to save this marriage is still foreign to me. You seem to have lost interest based on your behavior. Thus, I give you 3 choices. 1. You go out the door and see your dweeb of a boyfriend. That's the first option, I said, gesturing with my index finger. This decision will dissolve our marriage regardless of whether you two sleep together tonight or not. Second option, we stay here all night, and you try to convince me to try to save our marriage. There's no way I'll want to salvage it, I said, raising a second finger. You will have an extremely hard time persuading me since I'm not likely to trust a word you say. But maybe you will succeed since our love is genuine and we are thinking about starting a family. Option 3, you bring me along tonight to confront your lover in front of me. I pointed to my third finger and said, I can tell you there is a 30% chance I'll be willing to try. You insist he never communicates with you again, and then you give us 20 minutes to talk to him quietly, away from prying ears. This choice will increase my desire to collaborate with you and garner you the utmost respect. You have my word that I will give this relationship my all if you refuse to have any sexual interactions with him. Julia stared at me with a mixture of terror and remorse, as if she were going to pass out. If you did, this would be our last chance to save our marriage. Julia, you have 3 choices, A, B, or C. What do you think? Thomas, I am really sorry about everything. The question lingered in her mind for what seemed like an eternity as she struggled to maintain her calm. I really must speak with you. Who will be in charge of the discussion if we go meet him? A few points were awarded to her for agreeing to address him head-on, but she was still in serious danger. I seized the keys and accompanied her to the vehicle, since her answer threw me off guard. I had anticipated that she would choose to sit and chat, attempting to explain her conduct. As I turned into the road, she gazed at me, her voice barely audible, and said, I really ruined everything for us, didn't I? I opened the door for her out of habit, and she nearly broke down in tears. "You did, Julia," I said, keeping my mind on the path ahead. "How can I resolve this?" I paused to collect my thoughts before responding. First and foremost, complete honesty from now on. Her voice trembled as she asked, "Evidently, you believe it's okay to frequently lie or omit stuff I should know. I shouldn't have to say this, but I will. Please figure out how to convince me to trust what you say. It wasn't me that betrayed our confidence. I'm unsure of your strategy on how to proceed. And by the way, you think he is dead. Staying with me will prevent you from approaching him at work. Do not inquire as to his day. Your time at the bar is over the moment he walks in. Give me a ring right away if you're stuck." There was absolutely no conversation, no presents, and no alcohol. "Next, you'll fill me in on everything when we get home tonight. Please don't tell me what you think of the project. I will own up to the fact that it engulfed me. Please inform me if you have any animosity against me. Finally, make an appointment for marital therapy. You are able to choose a counselor at your leisure." She looked down even more pale as her phone rang, and she said, "It's him, wondering where I am." Without hesitating, she gave me the phone, and I perused her texts, finding a few from earlier in the day. Him. "Listen, I reserved a suite with a jacuzzi. Perhaps after lunch we can unwind a little. Her, you want to be able to get me inebriated enough to enjoy a hot bath with you, so bring your bikini. Him, we'll see. I am not bringing the bikini. What occurs when you drink is obvious to you. Perhaps a bikini wouldn't be necessary," he said. And then just now he said, "Where are you?" "I took a glass of wine as I waited for you. Her, I am a little behind schedule. Then I'll tell you about my surprise." Him. "Oh, you brought your bikini. Cool." I returned the phone to her, and after reading the text, she shook her head in disappointment. "Are you aware that these messages do nothing to bolster your case? It seems like you were intending to join up with him tonight, based on your communications from just today. If I keep scrolling, will it become much worse?" Assuming I knew the response, I said, "Do you think your text messages today constitute improper flirting? Feelings like these interactions have broken my faith in you are beyond your comprehension. Thomas, I promise I just planned to have supper with you tonight." And I overheard her weeping when she was sitting next to me. It was inevitable that I would sneer at the idea that I had slept with him. Just like a few weeks ago, were you going to offer him your underwear once you took them off? "Julia, we are nearly there." I didn't think she could get more paler, but she did. "Before you talk to Jake, you should probably put your makeup on and plan your words." As she began to collect herself, she said more calmly, "Thomas, I get why you think Jake was playing with me, but please don't drink wine." She then took a napkin out of the glove box and lowered the visor. "After hearing you, I get it. How on earth did I miss this, Thomas? I'm not a naïve little girl, and I'm aware that my recent actions do not reflect that. More dashing and cultured guys than Jake have eluded me. How then did he decide that I was the one to attack? Julia, that's why I'm having a hard time believing you right now. As a stunning and perceptive lady, you ought to be able to see through this hogwash. That is why I am curious, were you voluntarily involved? Just see myself lying to you and telling a lady I met at a bar that we were going out to dinner tonight. Okay, I screwed up, and now I have to figure out how to repair it." "I can see why you are so furious and wounded," she replied, her voice becoming stronger as her color returned. "Thank you for the opportunity you gave me." As she came in for a kiss, I swiftly averted my head, letting her peck me on the cheek instead. "I am still not over this. We used to exhibit a lot of love, maybe. We can return to that." "What should I tell him?" she asked me with an almost astonished expression. "Not by a long shot." As we entered the restaurant as parking area, she inquired. I pulled over, parked, and let my wrath boil. "Julia, what am I asking you to tell him? Because of what you did with that dweeb, our relationship is shaky at best. You two have broken our marriage to its very foundation. You could wind up spending Thanksgiving with our kid, and I might end up spending Christmas with him." While we were approaching the hotel restaurant, she paused and reached for my hand, saying, "I want this to be clear, so tell him whatever you want." After sitting silently for a time, she sighed and opened the vehicle door. I didn't resist, but I also didn't want her touch. As we stepped inside, a redhead hostess asked if we were a couple. Just as I was about to answer, Julia cut in, saying that we were meeting someone else. The hostess nodded and said to look around. I had no idea who we were looking for, so I had to trust Julia to guide us. She nudged me and pointed to the back of the restaurant, where a man sat by the hotel door, completely absorbed in his phone. With determined steps, Julia made her way to the table, where she abruptly stopped short of taking a seat. As soon as he spotted me standing behind her, the man's wide grin abruptly faded as he glanced up and saw her. "Jake, this is my husband, Thomas Rogers. His worries about our relationship are valid, and after our conversation, I feel the same way. I have created an opportunity for him to question my faithfulness, which is a first in our marriage. My connection with you has broken trust, but I will do my best to make it right. I refuse to interact with you going forward. Don't bother calling, texting, or contacting me in any other way. This has gotten out of hand, and I am taking full responsibility for it. Even though my spouse is aware of what I did at the Blue Moon Club, I am determined to make amends with him. Just wanted to give HR a heads up about what's going on and make it clear that they are not welcome to try to strike up a conversation with me about anything other than work tomorrow." As she turned to go, she planted a kiss on my cheek and said, "I am truly sorry." As she made her way to the bar, a range of emotions washed over me, including fury and relief. Sitting across from Jake, I took stock of his features: dark hair, slim build, and impeccable taste in clothing. I'm not great at judging men, but I thought he was attractive. From where I was sitting, I couldn't tell his height, but he was probably about my height. His fixation on the glass of wine in front of him only served to confirm my suspicions. Now was the moment to keep my cool and confront this issue head on. "So you thought it would be surprising to see her in a bikini? Are you really believing that she told you everything?" I said with a hint of a grin. He replied with a mischievous grin. I felt a surge of power as soon as he stood before me. "Indeed, sure. Julia and I have been friends for 15 years, and we've been married for 11. I maintained my smile as the server came over to take my drink order. I wanted a double Jameson with ice, and Jake said, "She certainly knows how to please a man." He glanced at the glass of wine he had ordered for her, but he couldn't help but grin. "Yes, that is true." I grinned broadly in response. "But I'm not convinced you are speaking from personal experience. Do you require visual aids?" "You don't have photographs," he quipped, chuckling. He was attempting to irritate me, but I burst out laughing instead. "It would have been unnecessary for you to put anything in her drink if she had gone that far with you. Is it GHB or Rohypnol that would-be rapists are taking now?" It was a guess, but his shocked expression confirmed my suspicions. He flinched as I leaned across the table towards him, my fury barely contained. "You vile coward. This is the perfect moment for me to beat you, but I'd rather not go to prison for it." I nipped my finger under his nose, I said. "I gave my wife 3 options. Now I'm giving you 3 options as well. The first option is for him to go immediately. Your resignation from your employment will be formalized tomorrow once you apologize to my wife. Then you are free to leave the city. I'll guarantee not to follow you if you do that. Second," I pointed to the ground again. "Then you report your involvement in my wife's drink theft to the authorities. Do your time and avoid her at all costs. Then you are free to go from the city. I'll only keep an eye on you. I'm not going to pursue you. Thirdly, we enroll in a boxing class. After 6 weeks, we'll both enter the ring, sign injury waivers, and stay there until we both pass out. You must think I'm an idiot." The waiter delivered my whiskey just as I finished. I took a long drink, feeling the burn. "And when you wake up, you still leave my wife alone. Then you'll leave the city. Given these alternatives, why would I choose any of them?" "You don't want to spend your life looking over your shoulder," I said with a sinister smile, in response to his sneer. "As you make your way to your vehicle in the dark, you want to stop to think about whether my buddies or I are waiting to stomp on your manhood and break your legs. You never know who could burst in the door when you answer at my friends, or I to tie you up and castrate you. You will always fear that I or one of my friends will put something in your drink and do something horrible to you whenever you visit a bar. Doubtful, you will not take that chance. Your wife said that after I had my way with her last night, but you are too cowardly to stand up to me," he said, his cheeks reddening again. I should have planned this better, I thought to myself, as I sipped my whiskey once more and turned on my phone's audio recorder, intending to catch our chat. The pervert in you intended to attack my wife by putting something in her drink. Would you be ready to risk a lifetime of pain if I don't follow through? This was all just to set the tone for when my friend showed up. Now it was time to reel him in. We were going to take our revenge on her tonight. I lost all control and tugged him towards me by the collar, using my left hand. The punch landed solidly, and I felt his nose crunch under my fist. He screamed, clutching his face, and threatened to call the cops. I dare him to do it while laughing in his face and telling him that I'd love it if the authorities listened to the tape of his confession and tested the wine. The police arrived within 10 minutes, apparently. 2 officers were having lunch nearby. They took my statement, collected the wine and glass for analysis, and while searching Jake, they discovered a packet of white powder. Jake then insisted on having a lawyer and would not continue speaking. The police took my phone as evidence after listening to a mangled recording that clearly showed him discussing plans to assault, as well as slipping something into a drink. Julia and I were not allowed to leave the station until after 6 in the morning. After giving our statements, one officer commended me for stopping an assault by the end of the statement. Jake was in police custody, and we informed my parents of the situation using her phone. We exchanged looks as we drew into the garage and turned off the car. Julia unbuckled her seatbelt and leaned across the console to embrace me tightly. I allowed her to cry on my shoulder for a minute before gently shooing her away. Julia, we still need to talk, but it's late, and we should get some rest. They understood and promised to take care of Michael, so we decided to take him to the zoo for the day. After we go to work tomorrow, we'll spend the day working together to resolve everything. Which way does it go? A gentle, yes, Thomas. Getting into bed sounds wonderful came from her. Would you mind if I slept next to you? Of course, baby. The next morning, I woke up and pulled her closer, reflecting on the events of the previous night. I dared to hope things might turn out okay, but I knew we had a lot to discuss before making any decisions. My hand rested on her stomach, and she brought it up to her chest. A surge of emotion hit me, but I knew I needed to take things slow. Sitting up in bed, I playfully smacked her backside. Get up, let us take a walk. We ended up taking a shower together, which only served to expedite our morning ritual. I resisted the urge to get intimate until we worked out our differences, so we ate breakfast at the Waffle House, talking excitedly about Michael's impending day with my parents, while keeping the conversation light and lively. Okay, I believe I'll start, I said after sipping my final cup of coffee. You can see for yourself what type of guy Jake is, so I want to linger on that. We cleared the bill and went home, sitting down at the kitchen table to face each other. Just days after we slept together, he said you made him happy and referred to me as a teddy bear. Do you mean that? That terrible evening at the Blue Moon was the worst experience I've ever had with him. Even though I know the consequences of what I did, I never went any farther, she said. I don't trust you. My gut told me it was time to be honest. You lied about going on a date with him last night, and you lied and withheld details about that bar incident, not to mention your entire relationship with him. I then proposed a solution. What about a polygraph test? Is it a lie detector test you were referring to? She inquired. Yes, set up a time. Feel free to ask me anything you want, I said. She agreed. Her face was so sincere. All I need to know is when and where it is. It would make me feel a lot better if you just spoke the truth. Even if I know these tests aren't perfect, let me see what I can do about that. My response was, it might take some time to set up, but it is worth considering. I smiled and added, actually, it might take longer than expected. So there you have it. We may discuss your level of commitment at a later time, but I promise my next question is going to be the hardest. It is the thing that affects our relationship the most and hurts me the most. Where do we go from here? I understand that the underwear incident made you feel ashamed. Despite my dislike, I can see your point. If you felt it was simply a casual friendship, I can understand it. It's just hard for me to cope with the idea that you were close to another man without informing me. Your fib about seeing other females while you were meeting him for dinner is the part that baffles me and makes me want to run away. Tears welled up in my eyes as I felt helpless in the face of such flagrant deceit. Thomas, I can only describe my thoughts as they occurred to me. Please accept my deepest apologies for the lies I told you. For the first time in our life together, I felt unimportant when you started working on that project. Neither you nor your job are to blame. I can see why you were so committed to this endeavor, she said, her voice quivering, but I feel compelled to share my feelings with you. My mood and sense of belonging began to decline. After that, something that Marissa's sister said really resonated with me. She said you may find love in other places. It was never cheating to me, I was only hoping that I could locate what I needed elsewhere while you were occupied. Then Jake showed there, and I felt extra wonderful since he did it without even realizing it. His questions centered on my day, my loved ones, and my hobbies. Trying to contain my feelings, I kept my mouth shut as she sighed and watched my face. It wasn't TT until Claire challenged me over lunch that I understood my actions were self-centered. To make up for everything you left behind, I was relying on Jake. However, I was still hoping that we might resolve this amicably. That night, chaos ensued. Neither he nor his companions were invited. They were the first of my buddies to arrive. I became more drunk than ever before because Jake kept buying me drinks. Oh my goodness, I messed up that night. But after our amazing night together, I was even more perplexed. I cannot believe I was so careless with him, but I'm having the time of my life with you. Then the video came to light, she said, rising to get a glass of water for herself, which she drank half of before going on. I anticipated your wrath, and it was justified. I knew it would be much worse if you got drunk and kissed another lady after our intense night together. You'd probably start to wonder whether I was considering someone else. Thus I erred once again. In an effort to hide it, I sought Jake's help. I felt compelled to provide him a hand because he likely encouraged it. He volunteered to drive me out to supper when my companions couldn't make it. I wanted to be alone, but I assumed you wouldn't be home till after midnight. I am very sorry for the bad decision I made while I was weak. Our relationship has always been built on trust, and I broke it. She couldn't help but cry, but I stood up to embrace her. I kissed her gently before pulling back. We're not there yet, and it will take time, but if you're fully committed, so am I. Julia and I went to counseling for a while. Talking about my problems helped me overcome them. The most important thing for me was that we kept working on our communication, which had been a strength since we met. In addition, the counselor suggested that Julia get her hormones checked. At 39, it was a bit early, but it paid off. After a battery of tests and a change in birth control pills, she started to feel better. We aren't exactly where we were, but we are making progress. The polygraph test verified that Julia was honest about her answers to all the tough questions I asked. I have my doubts about the reliability of these tests, but I can accept their findings. I signed up for boxing lessons, and Julia became interested in the self-defense classes that were offered. We started taking martial arts classes together, and while she's great at it, I'm not very good at keeping up. Sparring is now our favorite way to play pranks on each other. We finished the project 2 weeks early and under budget. Now we compete with big names in government contracts. They wanted to promote me to vice president, but I turned it down because of all the traveling I had to do. Instead, I started and am now leading the special projects department. This came with a new office and a secretary assistant. My new assistant is beautiful and funny and meets all my requirements. No one has said anything bad about my wife and me working together so far. I don't think anyone will object if we make money. I put most of the $580,000 bonus from my first project toward Michael's college fund, but I saved enough for a week-long holiday with my wife. My parents are ready to watch Michael while we are away. The most rewarding $500 and 60 hours of community service I've ever done went toward a conviction for assault for punching Jake. Jake will serve 5 to 7 years for attempted assault and possession of a controlled substance. On top of that, he was assaulted on his way to his car one evening, not by me, but by one of his previous victim's brothers, and the assailant will serve 4 to 5 years for the attack. Every month I put $80 into Jake's prison commissary account. Looking back on the holidays, I am very thankful that I got to spend them with my family. Those times highlighted the significance of keeping our connection strong and resolving our problems as a unit.